Hello, and I guess you clicked on this video because you want to learn how to hike for longer. Now that could be in terms of pure distance, or if you're getting older like myself, you might be thinking about how you can hike for longer in life. And I've been a little bit vague with the title because what I'm going to talk about actually covers both points. And the first thing I want to talk about is actually the most important, and that is the food that you're putting into your body. Now, I'm not just talking about on the day of the walk itself, I'm actually talking about the 98% of the time when you're not hiking, because there's a massive correlation between the food that you're eating, your athletic performance, your weight, and your overall health. And those three things have a huge difference on one, how far you're able to walk on a given day, but also how long you're able to walk later on in life. So it really is important that you think about those and start thinking about feeding your body the right foods. Now, on the day of the walk itself, I think it's fine to eat more calories than you're actually using, as long as you sort of balance that out on the days when you're not walking, because otherwise you'll gain weight. But I wouldn't overdo it, because the more calories you eat, obviously, it takes water from your body to absorb and digest those calories. And also, you just don't want to be waddling up any hills and feeling all kind of tired and lethargic because you just had a big meal. Now, for me, typically, if I'm going on a big hike the next day, I will have like a rice or a pasta dish the night before, something that's going to help my muscles store glycogen, so I've got that kind of fuel it needs to actually keep going. And then on the day of the hike itself, I'll top that up with like a regular healthy breakfast, so either something like porridge, or I'd even have like a full English breakfast. I would have a regular kind of sandwich or something for lunch, and for tea time, again, I'd either have a sandwich, or possibly, if I'm taking a stove, maybe another rice or pasta dish, something like that. Now, none of that is particularly scientific, but the key thing is, in between those regular meals, I'm having lots of snacks. So things like trail mix, cereal bars, even the odd protein bar here and there. All of those help, because what they do is they even out the blood sugar in between those meals. And by eating little and often, I think that's the key to kind of maintaining your energy levels throughout a long walk. You don't want to be having great big meals, you want to be eating little and often, so you've got like a steady stream of energy rather than these big spikes followed by crashes. Now, I don't think you need to be particularly scientific about this. There is a whole industry and a science built based on sports nutrition. But unless you are a performance athlete, or you do need kind of extreme multi-day trails, if you're just going out and going to hike 15, 20 miles in a day, then your body has enough mechanisms built into it that as long as you're generally fit and well, your body will cope with that and those mechanisms will kick in. But the key thing is you do have to look after yourself for that 98% of the time when you're not hiking, because otherwise those mechanisms might not work correctly. Now, a key one is something called insulin resistance. And if you're eating lots of sugary foods, lots of bad foods, then that might not work properly. And this has a really important part in insulating the blood sugar that you have and even out those sort of energy levels. Now, probably late last year, I really started paying attention to what I was eating, and I lost about 45 pounds, or about 20 kilos. And one of the biggest surprises and one of the biggest benefits I didn't expect was it kind of reset my insulin resistance. And that means that now, when I am operating with a calorie deficit, I don't get that kind of lightheaded feeling where you see feeling kind of slightly fuzzy or feeling kind of low energy. I just don't have those anymore. I can kind of operate and I start burning fat instead. Now, a couple of months ago, I went out for a walk. I actually forgot my food by mistake. I went out, I did 10 hours of walking, and I only had 200 calories with me. And I was absolutely fine. So it really does make a difference, just being fit and healthy in how far that you can walk. And the other really important reason why you need to eat the right food for the 98% of the time when you're not walking is your weight. Now, if you are significantly overweight, this is affecting your time outdoors. Now, I don't want to be that preachy guy who lost weight and then just starts trying to compare others, because I know people are obese for a number of reasons. I know how hard it is to lose, and I know what it's like living with obesity. Now, before I lost weight, I didn't realise how much it was affecting me. I knew it was limiting me in some ways, but I didn't realise quite how much it was until after I've lost it. I could still go out and walk 10 miles. As long as it wasn't too hilly, I wouldn't get out of breath. So I thought I was just used to carrying that weight. Since I've lost 20 kilos, I can go out and I can walk 20 miles and actually tend to run out of daylight before I run out of energy now. In fact, a couple of months ago, when I walked 20 miles, I carried a 26-pound rucksack, and then on the way back from the station, I was running a bit late, so I ended up running back from the station. So it has a huge impact on how far you're able to walk, just not carrying that excess weight around. I think also the thing you've got to think about is weight is linked to a load of conditions that could limit how able you are to get outside and how much you're able to enjoy your time outdoors, or even potentially end your ability to get outdoors completely. Now, for me, I had a bit of a scare recently where I thought my time outdoors was about to end a lot earlier than planned. When I started the channel, it was kind of one of the key things I was thinking about was I've probably got about 10 years before I hit 60, so I've got to kind of go out and enjoy myself as much as I can before I'm no longer able to do it. When I had the scare, it was looking like my time outdoors was going to be curtailed a lot shorter than that. And it's all clear, fortunately. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But what it made me realise was the access to these beautiful places. If I was to lose access to these places that you can only get to on foot, because they're so important to me, that would really impact me and affect me as an individual. I don't know what the quality of my life would be like if I couldn't get out into the woods and get out into the hills where you can just see for miles and see this kind of beautiful countryside. So what I suggest to you is, rather than just think about it as terms of weight, whether you want to lose weight or not, think about it in terms of what it means to you to keep the ability to go out and see that beautiful countryside, to be able to do the things that you need to be sort of relatively fit and healthy to do. Because I found that's a really good motivator for me. I don't want to lose access to these beautiful places. So just think about what that means to you, and hopefully it might just nudge you in the right direction. And the second thing I want to talk about in terms of being able to walk for longer is conditioning. Now, this is the process where your body adapts so that it is able to walk for longer because it gets fitter and stronger. Now, we all know if we do exercise, our muscles get stronger and our cardio system gets better, so we can put more oxygen around our blood and kind of deal with hills and stuff a lot better than that. But there's more to it than that, because even like big, fit, strong guys, they do sort of the old pec dance and that kind of thing, unless they're used to kind of walking, because hiking and walking is a relatively low intensity exercise, quite often it's other areas of the body that fail before the muscles do. Now, a really common one for generally fit and strong people is back of the knees and inside of the groin, where you get the ligaments, because they're just not conditioned to that walking. So quite often they'll have problems there out on a long walk, even though they're relatively fit and healthy. Another common one is in your feet. If you're walking regularly, then your feet develop thicker skin, which helps prevent or at least minimise the blisters that you have. So that's another good thing to make sure that's conditioned. And even, though a lot of these kind of things sort of fade if you don't use them, by conditioning your body and spending the time doing that, some of the changes you make are actually permanent as well. So for example, if you're doing a lot of walking, then you actually get increased bone density. That can be really useful later on in life when things like osteoporosis kick in. So having good strong bone density is a really good thing to do. Other things is when you develop muscles as well, you actually get more muscle fibres. It's not just the muscles get bigger, you actually get denser as well in terms of muscle fibres. And when you don't exercise and the muscle's a trophy and you lose that muscle, you actually retain those extra muscle fibres. And that means when you want to regain the strength, you actually get about 80% of your strength back in about 6 weeks. So it's really worthwhile just kind of building that base when you're fit and healthy, because it means you can always regain it later on. And we all dip in and out of fitness as life demands, so it's something that's definitely worth doing. Now, another one that I learned recently is if you're kind of doing a lot of high intensity exercise as well, your heart can permanently remodel itself to have increased capacity. And I found recently this is something that's actually happened to me as well. And it can be a bad thing, depending on why it's happened. If it's happened because of plaque and because of an obstruction, that's bad, that's a really bad sign. But if you're kind of doing a lot of intense exercise early on, it can actually be a positive thing as well. So that's another good reason to put in the work when you're fit and healthy, because later on, when we do all tend to get plaque build up as we get older, it can actually be really beneficial later on in life. Now, if you haven't done any exercise for a while, I think the key thing is start off slow and just build up to it, because otherwise you're going to get injured. And the only real way to condition yourself for walking is to go out and do walking. So just build up the miles week by week, and pretty soon you'll have a good solid base there, and that's going to set you up for later on and being able to walk longer in life too. And the third thing I want to talk about in terms of being able to walk for longer applies more to being able to walk longer in life. And that is getting a regular health screen, because there are so many conditions out there that have the ability to either significantly impact your time outdoors or to even end it completely. And this happened to me recently. I went for a health screening and identified something which had the ability not only to end my life, but to significantly, impact how long I was actually going to be able to carry on being outdoors. Now, when I had the test, it all came back green, apart from one thing, which was my cholesterol, which is stupidly high. It's like 10.77. Now, bear in mind, I've lost 3 stone recently. I'm eating all the right foods. The diet I'm actually on is the diet you would eat to lower cholesterol. I don't drink and I don't smoke, and I do regular exercise. It really should be lower than that. And because I'd had chest pains a few weeks previously, this triggered like a whole series of tests. So I got referred on to a cardiologist because they assumed it was kind of going to be really bad. I ended up with a chest x-ray, a load of blood work done, I had an echocardiogram, and I had a full a full chest CT as well. That's where you sit in the big donut thing and they inject you full of dye so they can see how your heart's pumping. Now, what followed was probably about 6 weeks of very uncomfortable waiting, trying to figure out what the hell was going on and being very nervous about things. But I spoke to my cardiologist yesterday and it's all good. So I do have some plaque build-up on my heart. That is to be expected to a certain degree as we get older. We all kind of get heart disease. But what he said was it is minor. And the key thing is that my heart right now is pumping absolutely normal. It's not obstructing my heart in any way. So that's great news, really, really good news. The slightly bad news was he thinks the chest pains I was having might have been due to a collapsed lung. And that's where, in the TV shows where someone's been stabbed or had some sort of puncture impact and the lung collapses and they're dying and then they put a big needle in the chest, they take a big breath and they're all okay again. One of those, but a lot less dramatic. So I've got to watch that over the next month or so, make sure I don't carry too much weight, I think. But that should just resolve itself and heal itself, which is good. But the key thing is he's identified that I've got this condition which is genetic that causes me to produce too much cholesterol. He said, I can't really change my diet any more than I am. I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking anyway, I'm already doing exercise. So he says it is just a genetic thing. It could happen to absolutely anybody. But the key thing here is it is manageable with medication. So because my medication's so high, just regular statins aren't going to cut it, they think. So he's going to recommend they go on 3 different types of medicine. And he says if that doesn't bring it down enough, they'll also consider injectables as well. And that's just something I'll have to go to the nurse every 6 months and they kind of inject me with. So on the whole, it's really, really good news. I'm going to be kicking around these woods for a long time to come because hopefully with the medicine, it will manage this condition long enough for me to reach a normal life expectancy. Because let's face it, if this doesn't kill me, something else is going to. None of us are getting out of this alive, are we? So it's great news. It's been identified early. And that's why the health screenings are just so important. So I'm going to leave you with that to think about. Do think about that because it is important. And hopefully, I'll see you next time.